Some bikes looked like a steal until they turned into wallet-destroying regrets. In 2025, dealers are fire-selling motorcycles that no one wants, even with thousands knocked off the tag. Today, we're counting down 20 bikes that tank so hard, they're basically chrome paperweights. Avoid them unless you enjoy losing money fast. 1. BMW R18. The chrome boat nobody ordered. The BMW R18 was supposed to be a mic drop moment, Bavaria's bold leap into the cruiser world. Big boxer engine? Check. Chrome for days? Double check. Heritage styling to rival Harley? That was the idea. But what riders actually got was a 900-pound ego trip that handles like it's allergic to fun. On paper, the R18 looks impressive. Air-cooled 1,802cc boxer twin, shaft drive, minimalist vintage lines. But the moment you try to U-turn it in traffic, the charm wears off faster than chrome in the rain. It's a two-wheeled tank that's painful in city traffic, awkward on long trips, and genuinely terrifying in tight corners. And that weight? It's not functional, it's just there. Even worse, BMW priced it over $17,000, hoping nostalgia would do the heavy lifting. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Harley fans stayed loyal. Younger riders laughed and kept walking. And let's not forget the tech, a tiny LCD squished between analog dials and minimal rider aids. In 2025? That's embarrassing. Resale? Brutal. Clean R18s with under 3,000 miles are being listed for under $10K and still sit unsold. That's not a deal. That's a cry for help from the dealership floor. 2. Ducati Monster 937. Italian drama, zero loyalty. The Monster 937 had all the ingredients for success. Ducati heritage, aggressive styling, and a punchy 111 horsepower L-twin engine. But then Ducati went and redesigned it into something that looks more like a Japanese street fighter than a true monster. Gone is the iconic trellis frame, replaced with a cast aluminum subframe that fans still haven't forgiven them for. Sure, it's fast, but it's also expensive, starting north of $12K. And that's before the notorious Ducati maintenance kicks in. Imagine paying nearly $1,000 for valve adjustments every 7,500 miles. And that's if your quick shifter isn't glitching, your electronics aren't throwing tantrums, and your fueling isn't twitchy at low speeds. The forums are full of frustrated owners whose fun urban bike spends more time at the shop than on the road. Riders expected an Italian thrill machine. What they got was a drama queen on wheels. Worst of all, resale is brutal. Bikes bought new just 2 years ago are already floating around $8,500, sometimes with barely 2,000 miles. The Monster name used to mean something. Now it mostly means you should have bought an MT-09. 3. Moto Guzzi 585 TT RetroAdv real disappointment. The V85 TT was Moto Guzzi's bold attempt at entering the adventure bike market with a stylish twist. Retro-inspired fairings, a charming 853cc transverse V-twin, and shaft drive, it had the looks to make adventure riders swoon. But ride it for more than 10 minutes and reality hits hard. The engine is underpowered and buzzy at highway speeds. The suspension, while long travel on paper, quickly reveals itself as soft and unrefined. Off-road? Forget it. The V85 TT might look Dakar-ready, but it bottoms out faster than your hopes after the first rocky trail. Then there's the tech. The TFT dash is laggy and the ride modes are basically decorations. Owners have reported misaligned panels, electrical gremlins, and paint that fades faster than the resale value. Speaking of which, used units now float around $6,500 to $7,000, even with low mileage and extras thrown in. It's not the worst bike ever, but it's not a real ADV machine either. Just an expensive art piece with handlebars pretending to be rugged. If you want style, fine. But if you want performance, look elsewhere. 4. Honda Shadow Phantom, the ghost of 2010. The name Phantom couldn't be more accurate. This bike has completely vanished from relevance, and it's no mystery why. Honda's Shadow Phantom is a bobber-styled cruiser that feels like it was built for 2010, because it basically was. It hasn't changed in over a decade, and in 2025, that's just lazy. Sure, it has a bulletproof 745cc V-twin and low seat height. Perfect for beginners, right? Not exactly. With only 44 horsepower, a 5-speed gearbox, and no ride modes or traction control, it's like riding a time capsule that nobody asked for. And let's not forget the analog dash. It's so basic, it might as well be a sticker. The ride? Harsh suspension and awkward ergonomics mean your back gives out before the gas tank does. Even loyal Honda riders are abandoning ship for the more modern Rebel 500, which costs less and offers actual features. Used Shadow Phantoms are now listed around $3,500, and most are gathering dust. It's not even a bargain anymore, just an outdated ghost of what cruisers used to be. Cool name, yes. Cool ride? Not even close. 5. Royal Enfield Himalayan low price, high frustration. At first glance, the Royal Enfield Himalayan looks like the ultimate budget adventurer. Rugged styling, tall stance, and that tempting sub-$500 price tag. What could go wrong? A lot, apparently. Let's start with performance. The 411cc single-cylinder engine wheezes out a modest 24 horsepower, which means overtaking on the highway is a prayer, not a move. Hit 65 miles per hour and the motor vibrates like a blender full of bolts. Long-distance touring? Hope you packed patience. Then there's reliability. Early models had notorious issues with cracked frames, bad welds, and electrical gremlins that would make a vintage British car blush. Even newer versions come with rough fueling, sticky clutches, and mystery noises owners now accept as part of the charm, and charm doesn't hold value. Used Himalayans are everywhere, many listed around $3,000 with low miles and desperate sellers. Riders who bought into the scrappy adventurer dream quickly realized they just bought a slow, shaky commuter with a backpack rack. Yes, it's cheap. But so is frustration, and the Himalayan delivers it by the saddlebag. Unless your idea of adventure is waiting for parts, it's better to hike. 6. Indian Scout 60 entry-level, exit fast. The Indian Scout 60 was supposed to be the perfect gateway into the Indian brand. Classic cruiser style, decent power from a 999cc V-twin, and a slightly lower price than the full-size Scout. On paper, it looked like a win. On the road? Not so much. Here's the truth. The Scout 60 feels like a starter bike priced like a premium one. No ride modes, minimal tech, and suspension that lets you feel every crack in the road. It's low and long, which might look cool but makes tight turns feel like you're steering a canoe with your knees. The real killer is resale. Riders who paid nearly $11,000 new are now offloading these things for $5,000 or less, often with tasteful mods and barely used tires. That's not just depreciation, that's financial heartbreak with chrome trim. Add in expensive parts, limited aftermarket support, and high insurance premiums, and suddenly this entry-level cruiser feels like a long-term regret. Want the Indian badge without the baggage? Look elsewhere. The Scout 60 might look cool in the showroom, but it's a costly exit ramp for first-timers. 7. CF Moto 700 CLX value. King-turned-cold CF Moto made waves with the 700 CLX, a modern-looking neo-retro naked bike with impressive specs and a price under $7K. Riders and reviewers alike went, "Wait, how is this so cheap? Now we know." Yes, on paper it's a value monster. 73 horsepower, ride modes, slipper clutch, cruise control, and a TFT dash. But once you put miles on it, the cracks start to show. Throttle response is snatchy, the suspension feels like overcooked spaghetti, and the gearbox occasionally decides it's on strike. Then there's the ownership experience. Parts availability is slow, dealerships are inconsistent, and good luck finding someone who's worked on one before. For a bike built on value, support is shockingly thin. Used 700 CLX are now floating around $4,500, often with the words "like new" in the ad, because nobody rode them for long. Riders say the CLX is fun for the first 2,000 miles, and then you start thinking about trading it in. It's not a bad bike, just one that overpromised and underdelivered. If you want affordable fun, you might want to spend just a little more for something that won't age like a yogurt in the sun. 8. Triumph. Bonneville Bobber. Too cool to be practical. The Bonneville Bobber looks like it was pulled straight from a custom garage, Solo seat, slammed rear, minimalist bodywork, pure hipster bait. It's Triumph's attempt to blend vintage attitude with modern reliability. And for a while it worked. Then people tried living with it. Let's start with comfort. That beautiful floating solo seat feels like a park bench after 30 minutes. No storage, no passenger seat, and no suspension travel to speak of. You're not riding this to Sturgis unless you pack Advil and a chiropractor. Despite its stripped-down vibe, it's still expensive. And for $13,000 plus, you get one of the least practical motorcycles on Earth. No cruise control, no cornering ABS, no tech to speak of beyond basic traction control and a pretty analog dial. Used prices have dropped hard. You'll see lightly ridden bobbers listed at $8K, $9K, and they sit. Why? Because buyers realize they're not paying for a motorcycle. They're paying for garage decor. It's a great second or third bike if you're rich, stylish, and mostly take photos instead of rides. Otherwise, cool doesn't get you far if your back gives out halfway through Sunday brunch. 9. KTM 1290 Super Duke GT Sport Touring or Stress Touring. This was supposed to be the king of do-it-all bikes, supermoto soul with touring comfort, 175 horsepower, semi-active suspension, and more electronics than a NASA console. And on paper, the KTM 1290 Super Duke GT is everything, until it starts glitching. Let's be clear, this bike is insanely fast. It'll melt your face on a canyon road. But that speed comes with a cost in blood pressure and repair bills. Owners report overheating issues, phantom warning lights, twitchy throttle response, and electronics that sometimes just forget what they're doing. And when something breaks, say hello to premium Euro pricing. Parts are expensive, service intervals are short, and most mechanics approach KTMs like they're defusing a bomb. Valve checks, coolant flushes, random error codes. The GT is a maintenance diva in a bright orange dress. Resale is harsh. Models that sold new for $19K plus now go for $9, $10K, and still don't move. Riders love the idea of this bike, but the idea is easier to live with than the reality. Bottom line, the Super Duke GT isn't a grand tourer. It's a high-maintenance relationship with a mean left hook. 10. BMW G310 GS Baby ADV Big Headache. The G310 GS looks like a mini adventure unicorn. Small, light, ADV-styled, and proudly wearing the BMW badge. But dig deeper and you'll find a bike that's all badge and barely any brawn. Let's start with power. The 313cc single-cylinder is underwhelming, even for entry-level riders. It's buzzy at highway speed, struggles to overtake, and sounds like it's being punished for existing. On the trail, it talks big with that ADV stance, but the suspension is soft, the ground clearance is meh, and the build quality is hit or miss. That's the real kicker, build quality. Assembled in India for BMW by TVS, early models suffered from loose bolts, fragile plastics, stalling issues, and electrical hiccups right off the showroom floor. For a bike carrying the BMW logo, the premium part never showed up. Used G310 GSs hover around $3,800, $4,200, but sellers often include phrases like still under warranty or barely ridden, and for good reason. These bikes are beginner-friendly in theory, but frustrating in practice. If you want a reliable small ADV, buy Japanese. If you want a BMW, buy an actual BMW. 11. Yamaha XSR700 retro fail in disguise. The Yamaha XSR700 was supposed to be a tribute to classic motorcycles, vintage charm wrapped around the proven MT-07 platform. Sounds great, right? In reality, it's a costume party that nobody asked for. Underneath the neo-retro styling is an MT-07, but with added weight, awkward ergonomics, and questionable design choices. That round headlight? Cute until you ride at night. The tank? Cool in photos, but weirdly shaped and narrow. The seat? Looks custom, feels like plywood. It rides decently because the MT-07 does, but the XSR adds nothing but aesthetic confusion and a higher price tag. For what? Fake side panels and a design that looks retro in theory, not in execution. Used examples can be found for $4,800, $5,500, and most sellers use phrases like essentially an MT-07, to justify the listing. Buyers? They scroll past and grab an actual MT-07, or something with modern tech and real comfort. In the world of affordable nakeds, the XSR700 neither leads nor inspires. It's the motorcycle equivalent of skinny jeans and suspenders, trying too hard to look cool while offering zero practicality. 12. Honda NM4 Voltus, the anime scooter. Nobody asked for if Batman rode a maxi scooter in a cyberpunk anime, it would probably look like the Honda NM4 Voltus. The problem? Nobody asked for that. The Voltus is a 745cc, DCT-equipped cruiser scooter hybrid with styling so strange, it literally stopped traffic. Not in a good way. Low seat stretch front, integrated bags, and a dash that looks like it belongs in a PlayStation game. It turns heads and then makes people ask, what the hell is that, ride-wise? Meh. The DCT works, but it's not sporty, not comfy, and not intuitive for new riders. And because of its weight and bulk, lane filtering and parking feel like trying to dock a spaceship in a phone booth. Practicality? Limited. Two-up comfort? Awkward. Storage? Surprisingly bad for a bike shaped like a travel trunk. And don't even mention customization. You're locked into this bizarre future pod forever. Used NM4s sit at $5,500, $6,000, barely ridden, often described as a conversation piece, and that's the problem. It's more prop than motorcycle. If you want style, go retro. If you want tech, buy a real tourer. If you want both, don't buy this. 13. Harley-Davidson Street 500 entry-level, exit immediately. The Harley-Davidson Street 500 was meant to be the gateway drug into the bar and shield lifestyle. Lightweight, liquid-cooled, and aimed at new riders, it should have worked. Instead, it ended up as Harley's most forgettable experiment. Right away, build quality raised eyebrows. Plastic trim that faded in the sun, rattling controls and welds that looked rushed. The ride? Sluggish off the line, awkward in turns, and brakes that felt more decorative than functional. Not exactly freedom on two wheels. Then there's the vibe. It didn't sound like a Harley, didn't ride like one, and most importantly, it didn't feel like one. New riders didn't connect. Old school fans didn't want it. Nobody wanted to be seen on it. It was Harley trying to be something it's not, and it failed. The Street 500 was discontinued quietly, and resale followed just as silently. You can now grab one for under $4,000, and most sit unsold, even with low miles. If Harley wanted to reach a younger generation, this wasn't the bike to do it. In short, it's the Harley that nobody misses, and the one most riders wish they hadn't bought in the first place. 14. MV Agusta Turismo Veloce. Beautiful, overbuilt, and forgotten. The MV Agusta Turismo Veloce should have been a masterpiece. Italian design, sport touring power, high-end electronics. But in reality, it's the heartbreak bike of the decade. Let's start with price. Over $20,000 new. For that kind of money, you expect excellence. What you get is quirky software, an overcomplicated menu system, twitchy throttle response, and a seat that turns long rides into yoga sessions. And then there's ownership. Parts are expensive. Dealerships are rare. Support is spotty. Some riders have waited months for basic replacements like mirrors or brake sensors. Even MV diehards admit that owning one is like being in a long-distance relationship with someone who only answers texts once a month. Performance? Sharp and responsive, but not comfortable enough for touring and not raw enough for sport. It's stuck in a weird middle zone nobody asked for. Used examples now list for $10K or less, with desperate sellers offering luggage, stands, and full service just done. Still, buyers are hesitant. Bottom line, it's a bike you buy with your heart, then regret with your wallet. The Turismo Veloce is too expensive to keep, too niche to sell, and too complicated to ride every day. 15. Honda CB1000R Neo Cafe Full Confusion. Honda called the CB1000R a Neo Sports Cafe, which sounds cool until you realize nobody knows what that actually means. It's part naked bike, part cafe racer, part design experiment, and unfortunately not enough of anything else. The engine's solid. It's based on a detuned Fireblade inline 4. The chassis is agile. The brakes work. But beyond that, it's a bike with no clear identity. Not sporty enough for true naked fans, not vintage enough for retro lovers, and not practical enough for commuters. It's just there. At $12,999 new, it offers 0 standout features. No cruise control. No cornering ABS. Basic electronics. Riders expecting a premium Honda experience got something that feels like it's stuck between generations. Resale values have tanked. Used CB1000Rs now go for $7,000, $8,000, often with never dropped and like new in the description. The issue isn't quality, it's appeal. Buyers just don't know what to do with it. It's not a bad motorcycle, it's just a marketing experiment with handlebars. And in a world of specialized machines, being average in all directions just isn't enough. 16. Yamaha VMax, the legend that stayed too long, the VMax. Once the poster child for straight-line muscle, now the motorcycle equivalent of VHS, legendary, outdated, and hard to find parts for. When the VMax returned in 2009 with a 1,679cc V4 engine and 197 horsepower, it melted faces and shattered eardrums. But that was 15 plus years ago. Since then, no major updates. No traction control. No cruise control. No ride modes. Just a massive engine and the ergonomics of a bar stool. Let's not sugarcoat it. The VMax is awful at everything except going fast in a straight line. It's too heavy for twisties, too thirsty for daily riding, 20-30 mpg, and too expensive to insure. Riders love the sound and the muscle for about 6 months. Then reality sets in. Used VMax that once sold for $17,999 are now posted under $9,000, often with low mileage, because most people stop riding them after a few weekends. Insurance is high, comfort is low, and nobody wants to buy one twice. The VMax had its moment. It was loud. It was proud. But now, it's just old, overpriced, and out of place in a tech-heavy world of precision bikes. 17. Suzuki GSX 250RR, the beginner bike that forgot to learn. The GSX 250R looks the part. Sharp fairings, sport bike stance, bold graphics. But once you twist the throttle, the illusion shatters. This thing has the soul of a moped wearing a ninja costume. With only 24 horsepower and a portly 392-pound curb weight, the GSX 250R is slower than most scooters and somehow still feels heavy. Acceleration is a chore in highway riding? Hope you like the right lane and getting passed by minivans. Even new riders outgrow this bike in weeks, not years. And don't expect modern tech to redeem it. No ride modes. No TFT dash. No LED lighting on older models. Some trims didn't even come with ABS. It feels like Suzuki pulled this engine out of a lawnmower and dressed it up for prom. Used ones are everywhere for $2,500, $3,000, usually with the words "great starter bike" in the ad, which translates to, "please take this off my hands." In a market full of exciting beginner bikes, like the Yamaha R3 or Ninja 400, the GSX 250R is just dull, outdated, and instantly forgettable. Not bad enough to hate, just boring enough to regret. 18. CanAm Spider F3 3 wheels, too many problems. The CanAm Spider F3 isn't technically a motorcycle, but it's aimed squarely at motorcyclists. And unfortunately, it fails to impress almost everyone. With its reverse trike setup, the F3 looks like it was built for a superhero movie. But in real life, it rides like a snowmobile on asphalt. You don't lean, you steer, which feels alien to most bikers. And that wide front end makes lane filtering and city riding a nightmare. The engine is decent, but the thing weighs over 900 pounds, so acceleration and braking are sluggish. And at nearly $20,000 new, it's an expensive way to feel disconnected from the road. Even more painful? Maintenance costs and high insurance premiums, especially for a vehicle that isn't quite a car or a bike. Used F3s now sit around $9,000, $10,000, but even those aren't moving. Owners often list them with "barely ridden" or "wife didn't like it." Translation: we thought this would be fun, but it's weird. The Spider tried to blend motorcycle thrill with car-like safety, but ended up in a confused, uncomfortable middle lane, and the resale market knows it. 19. 0S, The electric bike that fell behind the Zero S was once ahead of its time. A whisper-quiet, all-electric motorcycle with clean design and futuristic appeal. In 2025, it feels more like a forgotten Kickstarter project. Here's the issue. Zero kept pushing the same tech while the EV world blew past them. The S still offers under 90 miles of real-world range, and that drops fast if you use performance mode or hit highway speeds. Without the optional fast charger, which costs extra, it takes hours to recharge. Not great when your gas bike friends are already on their second lunch stop. Then there's the power. Compared to newer EV bikes, or even modern 650cc gas-powered machines, the Zero S feels like an electric commuter scooter with attitude. Quiet, yes. Exciting? Not anymore. Used models still hover around $8,000, $10,000, which is wild for a bike with limited range, aging battery tech, and no charging infrastructure in many areas. Add in the looming cost of battery replacement after warranty, and the value plummets even further. Zero made a statement. But without updates, the S is now the MySpace of motorcycles. Once cool, now collecting dust. How many of these bikes have you nearly bought? Let us know in the comments. We probably won't judge. Smash that like button if you dodged one of these chrome traps, and subscribe so you don't end up with a garage full of regrets. Ride smart, not sorry.